nice, I didn't even see you there. Me and Bear here were just sitting and contemplating our futures. Hello, my name is Connor Drome, and welcome back to If the World is Listening with my second and very special guest, Bear.
Hi.
Bear is a good friend of mine, a new friend of mine. This is actually only our third time physically hanging out, which is nuts.
Right.
She's a makeup artist, a model, a photographer, a creator, a genius. We just met last year, and I think she's so great. She just moved to LA that I wanted to invite her on and
I'm really excited.
I'm so happy that you're here. I'm very, very happy. It's also still kind of weird because I feel like we've been talking about it for so long of like you moving here and all this stuff, and now you're in my apartment.
It's like literally here. I know. I was texting him last night like, I'm so excited. I can't sleep. So I'm ready. I'm so down. I'm excited.
I know. I want to thank you and thank you that you're excited. But yeah, give us a little tidbit of who you are, and then maybe about your move here, and then we can go from there.
Yeah. So
actually, wait. Oh my God, I did my own thing wrong. Let me start this over.
Okay.
If the world was listening, what would you say?
Yeah. If the world was listening, what would I say? All right. I was thinking about this pretty hard, and it's kind of cheesy, but we like cheese. And
we love cheese.
Cliches are a cliche for a reason. So if the world was listening, what would I say? To create, and that kind of umbrella terms everything. So you don't necessarily have to be an artist to create. You know, you can create the life that you want. You know, create the relationships you want to build. You know, create the version of yourself that you want to be. And of course, if you are an artist, like create, like sing that song or like paint that painting. You know, like live for yourself.
Work.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like that's a perfect thing to say, and also it's so crazy because this is pertaining to me because I've not been creating and you are the most creative person I know. So yeah, now let's actually hear about you and maybe about your creative journey and what you like to create.
Yeah, cool. So everything.
She's good at it too.
Thank you. Yeah, so I started in theater, like particularly musical theater, which is really funny. I am that like dorky theater kid. Well,
she's Rachel Berry.
Yes. But it really inspired me because there were so many elements of art in that kind of space. I learned so much of my time being there, and it was like, oh my gosh, like 11 years of my life that I had dedicated to this. So I'm still young. Okay?
She's only 12 years old.
I know, I'm only 12. No, but that was like all my childhood and like early adulthood and stuff. But it taught me a lot. It taught me hair and makeup. It taught me lighting, audio, music, dance. You know, it taught me how to be a better speaker. It taught me a little bit about film, and it led me to modeling. So it was just like a really crazy journey. But yeah, I originally was trying to pursue acting, and I actually got like an equity membership. But as soon as I did it, I was like, all right, like I reached that goal, like I'm done now.
On to the next one.
Yeah, and I'm like, what other me can I create? So
work.
Yeah, I always knew that I wanted to be artistic. Like my dad, he was in aviation. So forever he was behind a desk, and I would spend summers with him behind that desk, and I just like told myself, ugh, like I never want to work behind a desk. So I was inspired to still work for myself while I was pursuing this artistic career. Yeah, so then I like became a hair and makeup artist, and then from there I had built my own business for that, and I was working on sets, and I was still getting to do a lot of theater, and then that even led me into more things like hair and makeup design and like creative directing and all of that sort of stuff. So I've really kind of done a lot for myself in the little bit of time that I've been here, but I'm really grateful.
That's why I think you are so amazing why I wanted to interview you, because I feel like, I mean, you were always, from what I know, have been a creative person, and like it was almost destined, but the fact that you took it even a step further where it's like, what else can I do? How can I do it? How can I do it myself? And how can I be successful in it? And that's why I think is so fierce. And also something that I learned and continuously learning from you is just like, do it. And it just like, if you want to do it. And just, like you said, just create.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, I think it's a very commendable thing.
Yeah, you have to get over that fear of success. I know that kind of sounds bad, like, oh, I'm so successful. But, because I'm still where I'm at, you know, like, we're always evolving and growing, and I'm trying to stay humble and realize, like, where I'm at and where I want to be are different. But yeah, you really, I'm taking my own advice here, but you really have to get over that fear of success. You know, like you're not going to be ready, it's not going to be perfect, but you have to do it. You know, there's a quote that I really love from Henry Van Dyke, and it says, I'm probably going to butcher it, but use what talents you possess. The woods would be silent if only the birds that sang there were the birds that sang best. And I have a little bird tattoo of it.
Word!
Tattoo
to
tour.
prove it, yeah.
And it just kind of reminds me that you don't have to be the best at something to still be a part of the community and for people to still appreciate it. So it's like getting over that idea of perfectionism, the, you know, comparisons, the thief of joy and all that stuff. Like,
which is so nuts, and it's like you're speaking to me, and I feel like a part of this self-discovery journey is that like I'm a creative person, I'm an artist, but I haven't been doing that at all, and it's because of my fear of success and also my fear of failure. And it's crazy to think about. We live in this world where art has really evolved, where it's a business, but also maybe evolved too much where it is a business, and it's like I shouldn't, you know, I love doing drag, but I haven't been doing drag because I'm like, there are queens above here and here and here. I'm like, I don't want to look bad. I don't want to like do all this crazy stuff. But it's like, it's art. Like, if you want to do art, do art. You don't have to worry about what it looks like or how you got there or if you're gonna find success in it. And I feel like maybe what's something that you would give. I know you kind of just spoke on it, but it's like more specific advice for someone that is, you know, wanting to create but can't because even if I have all the supplies, it's easier said than done sometimes. So what do you say about that?
So there's like the obvious advice, like you should make a ritual and have like, you know, a schedule and dedicate a little bit of time to it every day. So even if you're like uninspired, you still commit to it. But I don't really like that advice.
Work, because I also hate that advice.
Yeah, because I you know, I am an artist, so I don't really work that way. Like, I'm not very type A. You know, you can give me a goal journal and all of that, and
it'll collect dust in the corner.
Exactly. Like, that's not my kind of advice. So my kind of advice is to jump on inspiration. Like, when you have an idea, if you're not going to work on it right then, at least write it down. And you know, like, when you get inspired, allow yourself to actually feel inspired and allow that to sort of motivate your next step. Like, oh, well, do I have time to create this TikTok today? Or, oh, you know what, tonight I'm going to sit down and film this makeup look. Or, you know what, I'm going to reach out to that photographer for this really cool concept that I had. And another great way to, like, battle that perfectionism of, like, oh, should I even start? Am I worthy to start? I love looking at my idol's past.
Work.
Like, in particular, like, whenever I started my YouTube channel, I was so nervous because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 2021, and like, everybody's already perfect and established, and also the community I want to enter is like crumbling, and
girl, you're like talking about this whole thing right
this
here.
whole thing. Yeah, and then of course, like, do I want to find myself in an industry that's like sexist or racist or, you know, all of these horrible things? Like, do I want to contribute to that art? You know, but it's really easy to look back at people's pasts and be like, oh wait, I can do it. You know, like, you have to walk before you run, and you have to, you know, crawl before you walk, and you have to babble before you talk, and you have to sing bad before you sing great, and you know, you have to mess up your eyeliner a few times before you get it right.
Why are you looking at me when you said that?
I'm calling you out.
No, but that's so true, and I feel like I don't know, it's like I feel like the ego meaning just negative talk in your head, it can be so powerful because I feel like I know that thing of like, you need to walk before you run, because, you know, I've played sports before, but it's interesting because I feel like art is such a personal thing where it's like nervous about putting yourself out there. And even with creating this interview thing, I was nervous because as someone who also creates, putting yourself out there, and especially on YouTube, I feel like it's this unspoken cringe where they're like, ooh, you're doing YouTube now? Like, oh, I'll definitely like and comment, and you're like, haha, I'm like trying to take this seriously.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about that, where the haters, like, I hate even saying haters because it's cliche, but like, there are people that are always like, oh, you're like a makeup artist, oh, you're doing YouTube, like, like, how do you deal with that? Because that is something that I want to be my career, is being art, is being something like off the beaten path. So what's your advice to people that Get hated on.
So, for those of you that don't know, I don't have thick skin.
Same.
Yeah, like, I am not that, like, tough as nails bad bitch. I am the, like, emotional, sensitive kind of bad bitch. Where I will accept it, and I have to break it apart. You know, I'm not the ignorer type. You know, when people are like, oh, just ignore the hate, like, you're doing great. Sometimes I can get there just because the work that I do is for myself, and I want to make sure that I'm inspired to do it. Otherwise, I'm going to become exhausted, and things like the hate are going to overwhelm me. But if there's like a particular comment, either online or from a friend or whatever, I really just have to think about it. Like, oh, you know, why did they say that? Are they scared to see me grow? Are they afraid they're going to lose me? Do they just not believe in me? Are they projecting their own beliefs onto like my skill set and like that kind of thing? And I have to just remind myself, like, no, I'm in control, I'm capable, I can do it, and it might take time, but I'm gonna prove you wrong. You know, some people can be motivated by spite, and some people have to be self-motivated, but I've gone back and forth between the two of like, oh, I'll prove you wrong.
Girl, same. That energy literally got me to where I am today.
Yeah.
Which is a little like, whatever, but I don't know, sometimes it is motivation where it's like, well, I'll just show you guys that I'm actually gonna do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's also something, it's like, having that one person being yourself where it's like, I know I can do it, and that's all I need.
Yeah.
Also, that's screaming. I hope it's really
I
not
know.
being picked up on audio.
the like child screaming in the
Literally, like,
background.
is everyone okay out there?
Yeah.
But also kind of going off that, I don't know if you felt backlash, but I remember when I was moving to California as well, people were like, especially without having like going to college or having a job set up, there was also some sort of like ricochet from people who were like, oh, are you sure? Are you gonna sign up for classes? Like, don't you want to like do math or something? I'm like,
yeah.
oh, so
why don't you get a real job?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what is also some advice for people that, you know, one, moving, which I want to commend. Bear is very new, like just a few weeks, and she's like been working every day. So what's some advice also for that, like taking that move, and then also kind of like follow up, like how can you slay the move like you did, where just getting right to work?
Yeah. So I had already built a business for myself in Texas, and
Talk a little bit about that.
yeah, so I had learned already how to like build myself up. So for the move, I just known to apply those things, but with more intention, because it took me a couple of years to build a business I had in Texas, and now I'm just like full speed ahead trying to use those steps to like accelerate it. Yeah, but how I sort of ended up getting this business for myself was I already had a community at hand, which was my community of artists and fellow creatives, whether it was from the theater community or from my time like cosplaying or modeling or whatever. So I kind of marketed myself as that hair and makeup artist, you know, person that could build looks for people, whether it was for something creative or for, you know, their look. And I just built myself up from there. So I had my little community. I knew who I was talking to when I marketed myself, and the clients came, you know, and I built up this whole little thing. So I realized that I had found that little niche because of all the time that I spent like doing me, you know, and then figuring out a way to like capitalize on it or, you know, make an income from art. So I was really nervous actually to like leave it all behind, because, you know, you're sort of taking that risk of like, okay, well, I'm pretty set up where I'm at. Do I take the gamble and like move across the country and start over with like nothing?
Especially like I don't know if you can attribute this, but like LA also isn't easy. It's not cheap. It's not beautiful. It's like not desirable.
Right, and I already knew that, and it's so funny because I know that LA has that like romantic aspect of the city, like, oh, you know, where dreams are made, the LA Angels, the Walk of Fame, making it in Hollywood. You know, like I understood that, but I had always had my sights set on it because I would rather move and be a small fish in a big pond and grow than to like limit myself where I'm at. I just knew that I wasn't getting what I wanted in Dallas, so I did end up leaving that whole business behind. But I knew that I just had to start building my community, so easy and free things like social media really helped me gather a little group, and I just started like marketing myself and putting myself out there, and it's turned out really well. And you know, I'm really grateful that I've gotten to work as much as I have already being out here. So.
Yes, I mean, it's commendable, and it's also inspiring, and also one of the reasons I wanted to have you on. It's, we're friends and we talked last time, we just like hung out, but also like when we were talking, I was like literally getting inspired just by myself, and that's why I wanted to interview, to get more juicy details, but also to share, because it is pretty amazing, like the fact that you're a self-made business person, a businesswoman, more importantly, and you're here, and that I asked you those questions because I know I faced it, and I know you face it. I'm sure other people are too, where just like it's hard, and then people aren't always going to be like, yes, 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 work, work, work. So it's a lot of just like you doing you to the absolute fullest with kind of tunnel vision.
Yes.
And yeah, and also about being the small fish, big fish, the small pond thing you were talking about. That's
fish.
What I was like, one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I feel about Massachusetts as well. So how do people kind of build up that kind of confidence, because moving out of a small pond is really spooky. Yeah, how do you kind of build up that confidence to move, especially taking a risk, like you said? Like, you had a really good setup back home, you still do here, but it was a risk to kind of leave that there. So what do you say for people taking a risk, not only in art but just in life, like risking it?
Just trust that you're gonna make it. I mean, that sounds, again, so cliche, like, oh, you just have to trust yourself, but if you worry about something getting done, it's gonna get done because you're putting your time and your energy and your effort into it. So if you want to take the risk and you know yourself, you should just take it and trust. I mean, I did dip my toes in to the LA scene before I did actually move. I had worked on that gig over the weekend, and I had visited before for other work and also family, so it was a little bit easier for me personally to kind of take the leap. But yeah, you just have to know and trust that you're gonna succeed, even if it's not the way that you think. Also be open to the possibility of finding something else.
Yes, I agree. Which is kind of like the crazy part. I'm just gonna turn off this fan. I'm like sweating, but it's making a scary noise. That's how I feel. This is a little unprofessional. But that's how I kind of feel as well, where it's like kind of trusting yourself and trusting your gut, but also trusting the universe and the way things work. And it's like, even my friend recently, as a example, she had to move houses, and I'm like, it's the worst thing ever, and it's like stressful and all these crazy things, but it's like something happens where it's like you have to trust this, and she's now really happy with the house that she's moving into, and it's all, and like she would never expect that, but it worked out great. So it's really, I agree, kind of like trusting the process, but also like giving yourself up to the process as well, and like kind of surrendering to it. But still putting in all of your work. It's an interesting mix of both.
Yeah, like how I sort of designed my life is, I have a goal in mind of like what I want, whether it's something as simple and timely as moving, or something bigger, like I want to be a successful artist in Hollywood, right? I just sort of have that goal, and I do have some active steps, some creating the life I want steps, like I'm going to post on Instagram, and I'm going to reach out to that friend, and that sort of thing. But then I also have the more like woo-woo spiritual side, where this kitty is being so cute.
No, there I feel like there's like all odds are working against you now, talking like the baby screaming, fan blowing up, Matthew
The
Jerome.
universe just doesn't want me to speak.
Trust the process, I guess. No, but sorry, please continue. I'm so sorry.
So I have that like practical, active side of me, of like going and designing the life that I want, creating this me. And then there's the other side where I have the goal, and I just look at opportunities or like situations that do come my way, and I sort of decide like, oh, that would lead me towards my goal, or you know what, I think that's gonna take my energy in the wrong direction, and I sort of set myself up like that, where I just say yes to opportunities that get me closer, even if it's not quite like the path that I thought. I don't limit myself to what I can do, which I think is why I ended up doing so many things. I just like said yes and went for it.
Which I feel like is such a good attitude. And even before we were recording a little bit, we were talking about that, where it's like artists, especially ones that are working, and especially specifically modeling, where it's like saying yes to almost everything, and like even though you want certain things, or you want other things in mind, you just kind of say yes and yes and yes until until you kind of get to the place that you want. You know what I mean? You kind of have to take those not bad gigs, excuse me, like just those gigs that you weren't really expecting.
Yeah.
Or kind of just like having fun, and then, I don't know, I agree. Kind of just saying yes to everything and being open to everything.
Yeah.
Even outside of work, or what I'm realizing, it's like being open to experiences and being open to life is not easy, but it's also the key, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even my body experience of like trying to lose weight, it's like being open to other things, of not just starving yourself, not just running so much that you want to die. It's like be open to other things, be open to other mindsets.
Yeah, and it's like I feel like some of that, you know, like you were mentioning earlier, like ego death. I also feel like sometimes you have to mourn the person that you thought you were going to be. And you have to start
Rewind.
Bring it back. You have to start like loving on yourself, you know, for who you are in the present moment. And that doesn't mean that you know, can't have goals, but you have to be kind to yourself while you're getting there.
The mourn who you thought you would be is,
oh my god,
it's
crucial.
Yeah, because also it's like you can control a lot in your life, but you can't control everything. So it's like you can't just be so like dead set on these things. Things are going to change. You know, of course, goals are going to be achieved, and you're still going to be who you want to be. But yeah, mourning yourself, because life throws so many different things. I'm like literally processing that and like thinking about that right now. So that's Yeah, and like you think about how much time and energy and personality you had around like a certain part of your life, and then you've moved on from it. And at least for me, in my experience, I sort of felt like disconnected from myself for a long time because I had put my work and my identity in the same boat. Girl! Oh my god, okay.
And so now that I'm like coming out of that, right, and I've really like mourned like the person I thought I was, I just feel like a weight's lifted off of me, and I'm learning like that it's okay to be who I am. And you know what helped, honestly, is the move. Because I don't have anybody from my past like creeping around the corner looking at me or like my growth or whatever. So I really do feel like I can shed that old layer of myself and sort of like come into this new me. I mean, I don't have all the answers. I don't know who I am, but like
it sounds like you have a lot of the answers actually.
but I'm comfortable in the uncomfortable. You know, like I'm ready to like take time back for myself, and you know, I'm like remembering to appreciate all of that time because that was like personal development. For me, my example is theater. You know, I spent so long being an actress that I'm like, oh my gosh, well, is all of this time and energy wasted? And now I realize that I have all of these practical tools to like keep going in the different creative mediums that I have, as well as just how I sort of view the world. You know, like life is a stage and all of that. So.
Wow. That's, excuse me if I'm like bad at talking, because that really hit home for me. And that's like literally what I'm going through right now.
And I feel like that's hard. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong because I'm so new, but some of the trouble with LA is I feel like oftentimes you're only valid with the last thing that you've done.
Girl, yes, that's
you know,
yes.
So they're like, oh, what are you working on? And if you're like,
nothing,
everyone's kind of like, oh.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and that was something that I'm like grateful about the whole lockdown, was I just had time to think about all of this and just remember that like, oh, well, I'm forced to not work right now. Who am I besides my work? And that sort of helped fuel my work now.
Matthew agrees. Oh my gosh. That's so crazy, because it's like you're literally describing what is going on in my life, and it's crazy because the reason I was struggling so much is because I'm like, no one else knows what I'm going through. I thought it's a very lonely feeling, and it's like, you know what? I mean, let me just show you. Let me just bring Matthew into the frame, just so there's like an explanation. The cat,
so we know.
Yeah, as I'm like having the most important conversation of my life, Matthew, now is not the time. But that's literally what I'm going through, and that's what's so hard, is that you are not anything else besides yourself. You are not anything else besides Bear, and I'm not anything else besides Connor Jerome. But it gets so foggy because, especially, I don't want to say especially, but for me, being a model, or it's like you get valued on your last job, exactly like what you said, and how you look and how polite you are and all this stuff. Like, that's where your value comes from and how you get paid. So when that went away from me, I gained a lot of weight, and I'm like, well, now I'm not really so much a model right now, and I can't model that much right now. So I'm like, did all of my work moving from Massachusetts to San Diego, working for 2 years, doing all this stuff, losing all this weight. It's like, was it all for nothing?
No.
And that's what I'm trying to tell myself, but it feels like it, and that's kind of the crazy part is, I'm so sorry. That's kind of the crazy part is that it's like really kind of reteaching your whole entire brain that you are worthy of just being yourself and you are okay just being how you are.
Yes.
It's hard.
I know.
It's really hard.
Yeah, it's really hard, and it's been a really weird process of figuring that out for myself. Partly because of what we already talked about, just the business side of it, but then to the personal, I went through a really terrible relationship, and I was in like a very, very toxic, standard, narcissistic, abusive relationship.
Me and Bear are the same person. I'm finding out.
I love it. Yeah. So it really did a lot of damage, not only to like the way that I view myself, but also the way that I thought I could like achieve things, or like, you know, it sort of dwindled down every aspect of myself. You know, like how I talked to myself, how I got ready, how I treated other people, how I would already like prejudge myself with other people and like limit, you know, like you have those limiting beliefs and then you never get where you want to be because you just don't think you can do it. All of that. And oh my goodness, it took a while. Like it really did take a while for me to sit down and like undo all of that crap, you know, and remind myself like I can do the things that I want to do, you know, and I can look the way that I want to look, and things I've done in the past are still worth it. I am still that person, but I'm also better, you know, and like the I'm also better part like took forever. But yeah, there's like this sort of emotional change that I went through, because before that relationship, my approach to my art and business and life in general was so tenacious, fearless, you know. And then I was introduced to these like limiting beliefs and these fear-based thoughts and, you know, negativity, things that controlled me. And then I started to doubt myself. I started to doubt my art, all of that. And then as I started undoing that, for a while, I just started working really hard because of spite. I just wanted to find myself getting back into those things and like searching for who I was through art. Art is so therapeutic for that. That's why I will always like continue to love it and do it. And then like through all of that, after a while, the spite energy ran out, and I was left with those like doubtful feelings all over again. That's when I really had to like talk to myself from the past and say like, I forgive you for staying. You know, I forgive you for trying to make it work. You know, I forgive you for not leaving sooner. You know, like I forgive you for thinking that way about yourself. But that's done, you know, like we're done thinking that now, you know, like talking to myself, we're done. And then I sort of had to like regain this confidence. So now my approach to art and, you know, business and life is still the same, but it's not quite the same. There's something different now, you know. I have more fear and I have more doubt, but I'm just pushing through that, you know, and I'm just having to like remind myself every time that like, I can't do it.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it's kind of emotional for me, like being in LA, because forever I thought that I would never be here, and I thought it was like a pipe dream. And I mean, I am very well aware of the practical things that get in the way: rent, gas prices, the traffic. I get it, I know. But everyone that's dumped on it, you know, or hated on LA since I've moved here, just doesn't understand the other side of it. You know, the part that does matter to me in my art, and like finding myself with people that are like-minded and that can like celebrate art, you know?
That's so amazing. Honestly, it's kind of crazy that like this, everything you talked about was amazing, but this part especially is really resonating with me. So I would love to have you back actually to talk about maybe even less art and more about the coming out of a relationship like that and finding yourself, because that's a whole nother thing.
It's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah.
But you know, like they say, like tortured artists like really produce great work. But you know what? Like you really have, if you want to keep going and you really want to find that inspiration to like not compare yourself to other people and stuff, you gotta find that like inner trust with yourself, you know, that like work. So whoever told you that you couldn't do it, or you know, so this is a musical theater thing. but it's a very therapeutic song, so I'm gonna recommend it. There's this really funny musical about people writing a musical. So the song is called Die Vampire Die, and they talk about these different like vampires in our lives that try to like make us doubt or change or whatever, and then our art ends up being crappy. It's like very, very niche, but it sort of works for this situation. So, you know, there's like the energy vampires, you know, that just like tell you you're no good, and then there's like, you know, the vampire in your head that, you know, it's just really fun. So
I'm gonna go listen to that.
yeah. I'm like, so go listen, go on a journey.
Go perform in your local theater.
Yes, exactly.
I love that. So I'm gonna ask you one quick question to wrap up, and then I'm gonna ask a few other things. But so based off that, and I think kind of like a theme that we dealt with is that how the final question kind of is like, how does one really work well with their demons to become and to still be able to produce and be creative? Like, how do you get past those vampires?
Yeah. At least for me right now, the thing that's working is to be honest that they exist.
Girl, I've been running from them, yes.
Yeah, so I know some people like to incorporate them. Like, I don't know how to pronounce their Instagram account, but it's like Mimless or like Mimiles or something.
We'll tag
it. But she's really great. So she has like sleep paralysis. So she has like sleep paralysis demons and stuff. And she just creates like really cool illusionary makeup with the stuff that she sees. So, and like Alex Party is like a visual artist, and he does something very similar, you know, where he just like draws a lot of monsters and crazy things that get to him, which I think is really cool. But yeah, I just have kind of told myself, like, I know that they're there, and I just have to tell them that they're wronged, or, you know, not today, Satan, or, you know, whatever.
Hypothetically speaking.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. So now, if the world was listening now, what would you say? I mean, you can still be create, or anything else that inspired you throughout your own listening of your self-talk?
I know. Well, I just want to like spout everything, you know. Like I want to like get my book, you know.
The scroll.
Yeah, exactly. Roll it out. There's so much, but yeah, I really think like creating or like believing in yourself. I think they kind of go, you know, hand in hand. Is like to I guess, like, yeah, like, don't fear yourself. Don't be afraid of yourself. Don't be afraid of what you want to do.
Don't be afraid of yourself is key, because, yes, I was, and still kind of am afraid of myself. And it's such a crazy thing to say and to, like, really admit to, but it's, like, you can be scared of how you look, of how you act, of your future, of all this stuff, and, like, fear is going to get you nowhere.
So, like, yeah, like, live your life fearlessly, you know? Create that reality that you want, and like don't be afraid to do that, you know. Sit in the uncomfortable and grow and discover yourself.
Which is so interesting, because last interview was with Madeline, and we talked about being comfortable is it's a good thing. Like, comfort food is so good, but once you're eating comfort food, or once you're comfortable all the time, it's like that's a problem. Being uncomfortable is a part of life, is a part of growth.
Yeah, and I could go on and on forever, but
you will be back.
But I have a huge philosophy about balance, you know, like there's like a good and a bad in everything, you know. So on one hand, you want to be comfortable, you know, maybe you did just do something really scary, or, you know, maybe you just moved to LA and all you really want is some like mac and cheese comfort food, you know. You know, there's times for comfort, you know, or like sometimes you're sad and you need a hug, you know, there's time for comfort. But I think there's also something to be said for people that just stay comfortable, you know, and they never like no. And, you know, like everything's cyclical, right? And there's like reasons why we rest, you know, and there's things to discover about ourselves as we're resting, you know, and then there's a time to kick ass, you know, then there's a time to create, there's a time to discover, there's a time to succeed, you know.
Bear, you are a one of a kind, and you are well spoken, and you are a genius. So I hope you're all listening. And the last thing I want to say is plug yourself away. Where can we find you? What do you want to do? How can we hire you?
Yeah, with money.
Yeah, just give me lots and lots of money.
With money or makeup or both. So you can find me everywhere at Bear Campbell Beauty. I am on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So I post content.
Mhm.
Like I said earlier, I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. So I've just kind of whittled myself down to like content creative. So I like to post things about makeup. I post things about modeling, anything in the experience of the beauty industry. So if that's the kind of thing you want to get down with, then you can get down with me.
Ding! That was good. You can get that with me. Okay, well, that's it. Thank you so much for coming. And
Thank
she'll
you.
be back. Bye.